Hello and welcome. So, this week we will discuss about the sustainable development goal that makes the last component as far as this course is concerned on sustainable development. Today on the first lecture of 8th week, that is the lecture number 36, let us discuss about the overviews of sustainable development goals. Friends, all of you must have heard the term sustainable development, but what is that sustainable development goals, why they are required, and what are the purposes they fulfill or serve. So, in that context we will see what are the sustainable development goals. We have 17 sustainable development goals based on the what you say that are applicable for in general development of the humanity in sustainable way. So, we will focus on the goal number 13, which is on climate action. So, we say sustainable development goal number 13 is a relation to other SDGs. So, many of these SDG goals are linked or related to other sustainable development goals. So, here in terms of the goal number 13, which is on climate action and very well links to this course, we will discuss about the 13th one in detail, particularly what are the details with respect to climate action goal. Then we will discuss about the COP. So, friends, you may be hearing here and there from the newspaper that every year towards end of November or mostly in early January, that means first week of December and first week of December every year, this COP, Conference of Parties, this meeting is being held across the world. So, at a place all the 193 of 194 signatory nations they meet, then the country heads they meet and discuss about the issues around the sustainable developments. And then coming to the nationally determined contributions, that is NDC. So, we will discuss about the NDC particularly as far as the various nation is concerned, and we will take examples that what are the nationally determined contributions as far as India is concerned. Then we will discuss about India's national development plan towards the climate or climate mitigation, and also what are the policy as far as our national government is concerned. So, these 17 symbols, they represent one of or each of the 17 sustainable development goals. And on 25th September 2015, so about 11 years before, the global sustainable development goals, that is SDGs, were adopted, and this goal or the target, we say SDG goals or SDG targets, they have been targeted to be achieved by 2030. So, in that way we say agenda 2030, but we will see, we will discuss and we will know that how much we have achieved and how much we could not achieve and what are the pros and cons and different arrangements towards that. So, in terms of UN 2030 agenda initiative, in terms of sustainable development goals, you can see this sustainable development goals GOALS, so some typo mistake. You can see in terms of the no poverty. So, first one which is very important is no poverty. The world bodies, the citizens, the NGOs, the civil citizens, every sector of the citizen living on earth's surface, they discuss and come to the conclusion that the first and one of the important sustainable development goal is no poverty. So, poverty has to be removed from the world at any cost. So, that means people should be above a poverty level to live a normal life, to live a healthy life, to live a decent life, to live a quality life. The second is zero hunger. Yes, the next to that, after the poverty, the second thing is zero hunger. No person, no citizen, no individual, no human being should be starved, should face the hunger problem anymore. So, food has to be assured to every citizen in this world or on this world. The third is good health and well-being. We all have right to maintain good health. So, that means if we maintain good health, so maintaining good health and well-being is our right, and that has to be guaranteed and need to be achieved or need to be need to be realized by every citizen on this world. The fourth is quality education. Yes, the human being is different, is different from rest of the animals. So, human being, the brain is more knowledgeable. So, that is why each of our citizens should have education, and that to quality education. So, we should have access to right information, good information at right time, so that we are all knowledgeable. So, the fifth is gender equality. This is extremely important. We need to give equal terms or equality to each of the genders, the male and female, because this gender equality is so important, and we need to give equal priority in all considerations, both to gender, both to both the sex, both the genders. Then coming to the sixth one is the clean water and sanitation. We have a right to drink clean water, and also to have access to healthier, good sanitation, because this is linked to the SDG goal number 3, which is good health and well-being. But drinking clean water and sanitation have separately put in 6, also it has an affiliation to that, but we need to have access or guarantee in terms of clean water and sanitation. Coming to the seventh one is affordable and clean energy. It is linked to our 13th one, that is we are going to discuss more elaborately on climate change. All these are means the energy has to be affordable. We need to burn fossil fuel or any other energy sources. We need energy to cook, to maintain our life, to live our life. So, energy sources is very important, and that has to be affordable. That has to be affordable, and has to be clean. Clean means clean and green. So, that is why it has to be a clean, affordable and green energy to all the citizens on earth. Now, coming to the eighth one is decent work and economic growth. All of us has a right to have decent work, thereby earn our livelihood and grow in terms of economy, or contribute towards the growth of economy as a unit in terms of state and the nation. Coming to the ninth one, which is about the industry innovation and infrastructure. So, in terms of innovation and infrastructure and industry, we need to achieve the goals so that all the previous 6-7 goals will be assured. Coming to the 10th one is reduced inequalities. Yes, we have to reduce inequality among and between us. So, at several levels, at several scales, so that the human being is one in terms of many of these fundamental rights. And coming to 11 is sustainable cities and communities. Yes, the cities are growing, lot of facilities are available in the cities in terms of opportunities also. So, these cities has to be sustainable. These cities have to be sustainable, they have to be green, they have to be optimized in terms of grey and green, so that to realize the maximum benefits in terms of the sustainability, or in the principle of sustainability. The 12th one is responsible consumption and production. Yes, we need to be responsible in terms of consumption, in terms of, because all this directly or indirectly is coming from the natural resources, and so that is why we need to be very responsible in utilizing our own resources. Coming to the 13th one, which is the main focus as far as this particular course is concerned, is on climate action. So, this is important because we need to protect our climate. We need to take all actions to protect our climate. We later on will see that what we have already known in terms of temperature rise and many other impacts of climate or climate change. So, we need to take action. We need to take action in terms of slowing down the rate of temperature rise, and also several other actions that lead towards the climate mitigation, climate what you say restoration or climate safeguarding. Coming to the 14th, life below water, 15th is life on land. Yes, we need to protect them in terms of biodiversity. And coming to 16, the peace, justice and strong institutions, they all help in terms of nation building. And the 17th one is the partnership for the goals. We need to work in terms of partnership to realize the benefits or to achieve these 17 SDG goal targets. So, as far as UN 2015 is concerned, development that meets as in terms of the definition of sustainable development goals. So, the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So, that means whatever we have received from our forefathers, we should guarantee or pass it on to our next generation. So, that is the principle of sustainable development in nutshell. In terms of Agenda 2030 and the Paris Agreement, these are all very important points we are discussing as far as the sustainable development goal safeguarding or achievements. So, who wrote 2030 Agenda and 17 goals? As we discussed, these are written by representatives from all 193 member nations of the United Nations. Hundreds of non-government organizations or NGO, civil society groups representing various sections such as indigenous people, small farmers, working people, environmental movement people, scientists, social workers, minorities, the women's groups and other stakeholders over a period of 3 years time. So, 2012 to 2015 they all have been put in this job in terms of writing this Agenda 2030 and came out with these 17 goals. Coming to the next point is Paris Agreement. Yes, the Paris Agreement, which was adopted in 2015 as far as the climate action is concerned, this was adopted in 2015 under UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. They are legally binding to all countries, as we mentioned, 193 member nations of the UN, they are binding. So, what is that Paris Agreement they are binding? It is very important to understand or to know the key points of Paris Agreement related to SDG 13. The key points are keep the global temperature rise well below 2 degrees centigrade and also try to retain it below 1.5 degrees centigrade if possible in comparison to the pre-industrial levels. Friends, in some other lectures we have already discussed what it is in terms of comparing contrast the pre-industrial level time frame we take the average of 1850 to 1900 as the pre-industrial level, because since then the industrial activities have shot up, and since the industrial activities have shot up, the temperatures have risen to the tune of 1.33 degree plus till date, and our quest or our target is to return of this rise by 1.5 degree or latest is below 2 degree. Let us see where we stand. And coming to the national climate action plans, every country, so we say that every country must prepare and update the NDC, that means nationally determined contribution. So, how much is the contribution in terms of saving this as far as the climate action is concerned, that has to come from every countries. So, this is called the national climate action plans, because they have to show the commitment that they are reducing the emissions and at as much as possible in as much as sectors. And then coming to the adaptation and resilience. it strengthens the adaptation, disaster risk reduction and resilience. These are directly linked to 13.1 we are going to discuss next. So, climate finance. Finance is extremely important friends, because the developed countries, they support the developing countries with funding, technology transfer or capacity building. So, it is a must, otherwise the goal of climate action cannot be realized. So, the developed countries who are well off with respect to the finance and economy, they should help the developing and underdeveloped countries in terms of funding, also technology transfer and the capacity building. So, the next one is the transparency as far as the Paris Agreement is concerned. Countries must regularly report progress on emissions and adaptation actions. Yes, we understand that there has to be transparency. Which country is doing what should be known to the world. So, the progress report does that in terms of reporting on climate, in terms of reporting on emissions and adaptation actions. Importantly, the 5 targets. So, SDG 13, that is on climate action, has 5 targets. So, target 13.1, 13.2, 13.3 and then target 13A and target 13B. So, let us see, in terms of target 13A, it is also associated with some kind of symbols. So, it targets towards strengthening resilience and adaptive capacity to climate related disasters. So, importantly, as I mentioned in some of our previous classes, previous lectures, that human being has started realizing the impact of climate change in terms of extreme weather events and disasters. So, disasters are happening more frequently. So, that is why the target 13.1 is strengthen resilience and adaptive capacity to climate related disasters. So, that means strengthening resilience and adaptive capacity to climate related hazards and natural disasters in all countries, which is of our priority. Coming to 13.2 is integrate climate change measures into policies and planning of every nation. So, this is important, because once we integrate this into our policy, then automatically lot of things will flow as far as the nation or the government is concerned. Coming to the third one, the target 13.3, which talks about the knowledge building. So, knowledge building and capacity. So, building the knowledge and capacity to meet the climate change, what it does. So, that means we need to improve our education, awareness raising and human institutional capacity on climate change. There has to be training programs, people has to be aware. So, the disaster in terms of cyclone. So, the people who are mostly habitating along the coast, which is prone to the cyclones, should be aware, should be educated, should know what are the capacities in terms of mitigating this available to them. So, this helps them in terms of mitigating, adapting to climate change, and that is how the reduction in terms of impact and early warning. So, early warning also helps in terms of informing or pre-informing the people, the habitat, so that they can move or they can take necessary measures to cope with this kind of extreme weather events, starting from cyclones, the droughts, the landslides, the fires, the heat waves. So, all these lightnings. So, these need to be taken care in terms of building knowledge and capacity. Now, let us move on to the 2 additional targets in terms of target 13A and 13B. So, 13A talks about implementing the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. So, it implements necessarily the UNFCCC. So, what does it exactly does or mean? Implement the commitment undertaken by developed country parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change UNFCCC to a goal of mobilizing jointly 100 billion annually by 2020. Look at the commitment. This commitment is important to realize the climate action. So, the commitment is mobilizing jointly 100 billion annually by 2020. We will see in our subsequent lectures that it has not been achieved. From all sources to address the need of developing countries to context of meaningful mitigation actions and transparency on implementing and fully operationalize the GCF Green Climate Fund through its capitalization as soon as possible. So, the funding or mobilization funding cumulatively to the tune of $100 billion US dollars annually has not yet been realized. So, we will see in terms of the Green Climate Fund and other capitalization things how they have been affected or not realized to the best possible extent. Now, let us move on to the target 13B, where we talk about the promotion in terms of mechanisms to raise capacity for planning and management. So, promote mechanisms for raising capacity for effective climate change related planning and management in least developed countries and small island developing states, including focusing on women, youth and local and marginalized communities. So, these are the 5 targets as far as the SDG number 13, goal number 13, that is climate action is concerned. Move on to the role of the COPs. The COPs, particularly the Conference of Parties, they take stock, they analyze in an annual scale what has happened and they take or they insist on taking the corrective measures so as to realize the maximum benefits. Global platform for setting of global climate policies, targets and financing mechanisms that guide countries in implementing climate action, reducing emissions, building resilience and monitoring progress under SDG 13. So, COP25 was held in Madrid. Let us move on from 2019 onwards, the COP25 which was held in Madrid, Spain. It focused on climate finance and agriculture. It addressed the technology transfer and capacity building. It also discussed gender and indigenous rights. So, these 3 important things were discussed in COP25 in Madrid in 2019. Moving on to 2021, which is very important as far as the Glasgow is concerned, there it shows that the emission cuts are still insufficient. The nations or the individual nations, whatever the emission cut they have done, it is still not sufficient. So, emission cuts needed every year, not on one time drop such as corona or the COVID-19 period. It has to be there every year. So, fossil fuel investment slows climate action. So, it has been seen that nations they are investing on fossil fuels. So, it is contradicting. So, we should discourage investments on climate action. Then the 1.5 degree target. So, if this cannot be done or cannot be achieved or can be slowly achieved, then perhaps the target of arresting the temperature rise by till or up to 1.5 degree centigrade may be at risk. So, this came up during the Glasgow conference in 2021. So, coming to 27, which happened in Sharm el Sheikh in terms of COP27. So, it establishes the loss and damage funding. So, here from this COP27, the loss and damage funding has been established, and this fund supports the countries they are mostly hit by the climate disasters. And so, this is a very important step as far as the climate justice is concerned. Moving on to 28, which has happened in Dubai. So, 3 important decisions have been taken there. So, here conducted the first global stock take. So, first time the stock take as far as the Paris Agreement is concerned has been done here in Dubai COP28. This COP28 here it highlighted that the world is not on the track to meet 1.5 degree centigrade target. So, whatever is being done, particularly by taking the stock taking, so it has been found that the world whatever is doing, it is not in the pathway of meeting the 1.5 degree target. So, in general it called for a transition away from the fossil fuel. We need to move away from the fossil fuels to renewable and green energy sources, and this particular COP28 also strengthened focus on adaptation, loss and damage, and climate finance. COP29, let us move on to Buku, which happened in 2024. It focused again on climate finance, discussed setting a new global finance target to support the developing countries, emphasized stronger international cooperation for mitigation and adaptation, aimed to improve implementation of SDG 13. The recent or the last one in terms of the COP30 happened in Brazil, Belém in 2025. This COP30 focused on stronger, so more stronger what you say nationally designated contributions aligned with 1.5 degree target in terms of temperature rise arrest. It highlighted forest biodiversity and nature based solutions. So, we as I mentioned the week 7 we discussed on nature based solutions. So, this also have been highlighted in the Brazil COP30 that nature based solution must be there because it is sustainable in long run, it is cheap and it is green. This COP30 played a key role in increasing global ambition and long term climate action. Moving on towards the scope and mitigation targets, as far as prior to COP21 in 2015, most countries submitted their intended nationally determined contributions, or we say the INDCs, which included mitigation targets for 2025 or 2030. So, this intended NDC, or you say INDC, it became the first nationally determined contributions on ratification. So, these NDCs they reflect national efforts to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and build resilience to impacts of climate change. By 11 October 2021, the NDC registry included, you see how many 194 first NDCs, initial submission on one per party, 105 updated NDCs, revisions by some of the same parties, and 13 second NDCs, that means a subset of updated NDCs. These all cover about 53% of the global 2019 emissions. So, what was the total? That was into the tune of 52.4 gigatons of carbon dioxide equivalent. This apart from our bearing the land use and land cover change, including the forestry sector. So, what are the mitigation target range? We need to do these things in terms of economy wide absolute emission reduction, bow the deviation targets business as usual, the intensity targets in terms of greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide equivalent, and also energy and policy strategies and actions. We have different target years in terms of 2030, but it looks like it will be extended to 2035, 2040 or may stretch up to 2050 towards realizing the 17 sustainable development goal targets. So, as far as India's national development plan is concerned, NDC's targets of developing countries include conditional and unconditional. Unconditional is self-finance and conditional if with international support. India's national development plan, it focus on improving living standards, productivity and inclusive growth. So, this NAPAC, the National Action Plan on Climate Change 2008 and 12th 5-year plan that ran between 2012 and 2017, they integrated climate action in sustainable planning, climate action and sustainability into the planning process. So, this is an important step as far as India is concerned. So, Niti Aayog, which formed in 2017, India now pursues dynamic sector specific initiatives targeting innovative energy access, infrastructure, agriculture and equitable balanced developments. So, alongside these, governance reforms aim to improve public service delivery, combat corruption and black economy. So, all this actually reduce leakages through direct benefit transfer. Now, let us
just do it, sir. Card khatam ho gaya, sir. एक ने ये स्क्रैच भी करना पड़ेगा सर.
क्या करना पड़ेगा?
Sorry, sir?
नहीं, ये पूरा पूरा को और एक बार करना पड़ेगा।
पूरा को नहीं, आधा से भी आपका हो गया।
प्रीवियस स्लाइड को दोबारा बोलूं?
हाँ सर, उसे अभी नहीं, कार्ड लाने के बाद कार्ड खत्म हो गया सर, एडिट कार्ड खत्म हो गया।
तो बाद में करेंगे।